Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And also check out our Patreon page. I'll put a link below. On Patreon, you're going to get the ability to get exclusive content, reviews that haven't been released yet, and also a discount code for 15% off of everything in our online web store. Hey, I'm Mike, owner of the In-Groove in Phoenix, Arizona. Today I'm going to talk about Record Store Day in 2020. So last week was Record Store Day, the original date. Unfortunately, that was pushed back. People are calling me, they're asking, what's going to happen with Record Store Day? So let's talk about Record Store Day, which has been pushed back to June. I don't have a lot of hopes that we're even going to see a June Record Store Day. I don't think that's going to be very feasible. The problem with the June Record Store date is I think there's going to be some states that are open for Record Store Day in that, in that time vicinity. There's going to be some stores that'll be allowed to be open. But there's a lot of hot spots that the coronavirus is affecting around the country that are not going to be up and going in June. Can you see people in New York City or Los Angeles lining up 200-300 people at Amoeba waiting in line for Record Store Day? I just don't see that as feasible. And you got to think, I'm a record store in Phoenix. There's a lot of record stores in between LA and New York that are much smaller venue type of record stores that don't get that same quantity of people lining up outside. But most of the population is on the coasts. And I just don't see a scenario come June where you can say, all right, Montana, you get to do Record Store Day, and Idaho, you get to do Record Store Day, and the Dakotas, you get to do Record Store Day, but all these major population centers, you're not going to be doing Record Store Day. So I don't foresee it actually being feasible at that particular time. This is just my guess on where we're going to be at, in a couple months' time. It's obviously very hard predicting the future. But let's talk about some other things. So if you can have Record Store Day at that time, do you do Record Store Day where you have half of or more of the population not being able to participate? That's an iffy situation. Now let's talk about the logistics of Record Store Day. For a record store to do Record Store Day properly is extremely expensive. Just on my last Record Store Day, as an example, we spent an enormous amount of money. In our case, it was somewhere over the $60,000 range. So that is a massive outlay of investment. So let's assume everything is firing at all cylinders at the end of next month, at the end of May, going into June. We're open back up. Look at the record stores and where they're going to be at that particular time at the end of May. At the end of May, you're going to have record stores that have been closed for 2 months. Now, it's tough to speak for other record stores. I can only speak for myself. But a lot of record stores are not geared to shut down for 2 months and sustain themselves and then open up in a couple months like there was no issue. I've been fortunate over the past summer. We took the summer slow months, the hot months in Arizona, to update our internal systems in the store. So we actually put everything new that's in our stores simultaneously on our website at www.theingroove.com. So although we've closed businesses down astronomically compared to what it normally would be, we lost out on all the spring training and all that business that we generally get from tourism in March, wipe those sales off. We haven't been completely clobbered because we have a little bit of outlet online. And also, I kind of buy records like a crazed madman. I have a very difficult time saying no. So for the last 5 years, I get collections in and I just buy them. Now my wife looks at me and says, why in the world are you buying more records? You have hundreds of thousands of records in our storage. We cannot park in our garage. And you've got 1,500 square foot of records in the back of the store that are just packed to the brim. Why are you still buying more? Well, I can't turn down great records. If If I get a collection in and it's like, wow, this is great stuff, I just can't help myself. I just buy it and then I worry about where to put it. And, that's gotten to the point where we have a significant amount of backstock we've been able to go through. So even though the store is closed, we're able to go through backstock, and we're putting some stuff online, not LPs. I really hate putting quality LPs, used stuff on Discogs. So, but we've been cleaning and we've been processing, and when we open, we're going to have a lot of new merchandise for our customers to look at. Don't think we're going to have a ton of new customers when we finally get to that point, but we're going to have a lot of stuff. But I'm rambling on about, we're getting off the topic here. More or less, we've had a little bit of income coming through the past couple of months. A lot of record stores don't have that. A lot of record stores in my area do not have that. So they're getting absolutely clobbered. You've got 2 months of zero income, and let me tell you what, the bills aren't stopping. I called my landlord and I'm like, it seemed like the prudent thing to do. Let's, is there something we can do here? Oh no, you pay me. I have to pay my bills, you have to pay your bills. And it's like, you have to try. You don't know, obviously, when the store is going to open back up. You want to try to cut wherever you can. But I'm guessing a lot of other retailers in the United States are in the exact same boat. They are bleeding money, a lot of guys, money that they don't have for a couple of months' time. So if you're a record store owner, where do you get that money to support yourself? Well, you bleed off inventory. So if you've got some premium nice wall records, or you got records in the bin, most record stores in town and across the country have been liquidating that stock. So what's going to happen is, after we get 2-3 months, whatever, down the road, when record stores have to open, they're going to open to a very, very bled out inventory because they've been liquidating stuff online to make ends meet. Or if they haven't had to do that, they're taking whatever money, savings, or anything of that nature that they have put aside, and they're using that to pay their bills. A lot of guys had a lot of money saved going into this for record store day. And let me tell you what, when you've got $20,000, $30,000 sitting in the bank, getting prepped and ready for record store day, assuming you fund your record store day, a lot of guys might do credit card loans or stuff of that nature, but assuming you've got the money to fund your own record store day purchases, more than likely you've been bleeding that cash off for months. So come June, I just can't envision a lot of record stores saying, okay, I've been endlessly paying bills, I've got virtually none or no income coming in, let's plop down 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand, even if you do a small amount of record store. I mean, a couple hundred records is going to cost you 10 grand. Even if you do a small amount of record store day stuff. Can you envision a lot of record store days, after dealing what they've been dealing with, plopping down 10, 20, 30, 40 grand? I just don't see that as happening. So there's a lot of different variables that are going to make this year, if we have a record store day, very either bad, where, okay, you don't have stores participating, bad where you don't have customers have access to it, or think about also the general atmosphere of a record store day. The general atmosphere of record store day, part of the thing that makes it fun is the mania of it, is the waiting in line. Everybody's itching to get their records. You're talking to people in the line for a couple hours. What do you want? Look, people are looking in my window. Oh, I think I see it there, or no, it's over there. I mean, all of that. Can you imagine a pile of people crowding up outside of a record store waiting to get in? I mean, I love records as much as the next guy, but I don't envision a bunch of people putting their lives in risk to get them, to get, a new reissue of a David Bowie record. It's just, I don't see that being feasible. Also, at the same token, I don't see another way of doing it. If you have it to where you're allowed to say, okay, let's do record store day, reserve things for customers, or let's be able to sell stuff online, that'd be an absolute disaster for a record store. Assuming a record store could do stuff like put it online, but it had to be at retail, you're going to have people gobble up the premium titles, and you're going to have record stores sitting with a huge amount of that allocated record store day stuff that now becomes unsellable. Because one of the things that is unique with record store day is things seem to get funneled off more or less to other areas. So you might get an item that gets heavily dumped in a region, and then you get virtually none of it in another region. So there's always a buzz of people looking for stuff. You know, maybe it's plentiful here, but it's non-existent there. And that kind of creates a secondary market for it online. That allows a store the day after to be able to sell something online at full retail. Well, if you dump everything into one online kitty, the premium stuff, you know, the mega title that everybody's looking for, yeah, that'll be easy to get. You know, you pay for it. It's not that it'll be easy to get, but you'll be able to pay for it. But if you take the items that normally would be a little tougher to get, they're going to be easy to get, and then there's going to be a lot of price, you know, maybe they start at retail, but it's going to go way below retail and way below where record stores are making money. None of that is feasible. No record store is going to want to participate in those in that environment. So, you know, you can push it back farther, but now there's another issue. All the record store day stuff is made. It's not like it needs to be manufactured. That's a done deal. So there's either labels or distributors, more than likely the labels, are now sitting on this product. Do the math on how much money is being stored. I don't see labels wanting to hold that longer. You know, if you're, you know, and obviously these labels are worth billions and billions of dollars, and maybe they're only holding $10, $20 million worth of product. But I can't see a label wanting to hold $10 or $20 million worth of product. That just doesn't seem realistic. I don't see them doing that. They're going to want to dump that merchandise sooner or later. So what do? They make it an indie exclusive maybe. But if you take all that old inventory and you start bleeding it out of record store day, which a little of it has happened. There was a Post Malone title that was supposed to be released. That's now going to be an indie exclusive. Available only to record stores, but not a record store day title. And we're getting a lot of titles that are doing that. So the list is going to start slimming. And that's going to keep happening the longer this is pushed out, because labels and distributors are not going to sit on millions and millions of dollars worth of merchandise. They're going to try to push that onto the market. I mean, it's common sense. Business is tight. Money is not coming in. You're going to do that. So here's another fly in the ointment. Let's assume everything at the end of May, states, governments start opening things back up. Well, there's a lot of degradation to these distributors' workforces. One of my distributors, the rep that I've had for the last 6 years, he's been furloughed. Employees in the warehouses are being furloughed. You know, these distributors are doing 10% of the business that they once did. So they have a huge amount of employees that they've had to furlough. Well, a lot of those guys, if you're a warehouse employee at a record distributor and you've been furloughed, I mean, you can't go without income. So what do? You're going to go work for Amazon, or you're going to be working for a grocery store. You're going to be working for one of these essential businesses that are in demand, you know. So their workforce is going to be heavily depleted. Then if you have an influx of orders coming in, how do you last minute distribute that stuff? I mean, it's a mania the week before record store day. We get tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars worth of merchandise 2 days before record store that we got to inventory, we got to process, we got to throw into our system, and we got to get ready to sell. On the other end, you've got distributors who are moving that amount of merchandise within a couple of days time. So it is a massive undertaking, and I just don't see logistically these distributors having the manpower to get this done. That's a major undertaking. So, you know, my best guess at this point is it's going to be either delayed or it's going to be canceled, or maybe one of the best things they can do is push this record store day into the Black Friday record store day. Essentially anything that they had planned for Black Friday, at this point, I think we need to move record store day into Black Friday and just do the one. Because normally, you know, you have record store day in April and then you have like a miniature record store day in Black Friday. The problem is with the Black Friday record store day, and nobody's even talking about this, is a lot of the stuff, getting stuff manufactured and whatnot for Black Friday record store day, a lot of that stuff is actually handled now. Well, a lot of plants are closed. You know, RTI in California, are they making records right now? That's not an essential business. They've been closed down. So plants that should have been making records for Black Friday record store day are, you know, I doubt they're making anything. So that would affect, what's going on now is going to affect record store day, Black Friday. So it seems to me that the absolute best solution here would be to push this into November. I just don't see another way of feasibly doing this. And to be honest, November might be a complete disaster too. I mean, we're all in uncharted territory. You know, the last time we've dealt with something like this as a country was 100 years ago. And, you know, there's absolutely, nobody's alive to even remember that happening, you know? So, in all honesty, we really don't know what's going on here. We got to look at history books to kind of grasp an idea of what we're dealing with here on a worldwide scale. But how does that affect the global economy? How does that affect stuff that's all intertwined, like Record Store Day is, where labels and artists and manufacturing, and you're dealing with lacquers that, you know, another problem, lacquer fire, you're dealing with all these intertwined industries having to rely on one another. And you got the whole world in different phases of shutdown. Not only that, let's assume everything was on the up and up and everything was working just fine. I've got shipping problems all over the world. You know, we were selling a lot of records at this point on Discogs. I've had to temporarily suspend doing international stuff because you've got items getting hung up for 2 months. And some people are hip to it and they're like, you know, I understand, I'll wait. But you got a lot of people who are, you know, they're demanding their records in the normal 3 weeks time it takes to move something around the world. That's not feasible right now. You know, there's a lot of stops in a package moving throughout the country and the world, and there's a lot of bottlenecks within those stops. So we're having shipping delays like crazy. Merchandise that I receive from my distributor, I'll order, you know, last week I ordered 30 records and I got 4 or 5 titles of the 30 that I ordered, and 3 of the titles were Blue Note Tone Poets, and that was, you know, those orders were cut by 95%. I got virtually none of what I ordered in. So I can see that if that happened on Record Store Day, you know, you got somebody waiting outside, they're battling the coronavirus, they're going through all these hoops to wait in front of your store, and what are you going to tell them? Oh yeah, you know, that title you waited outside since 9 o'clock last night, it didn't get shipped. Good luck with that. So, you know, this is a very doom and gloom video, but, you know, this needs to be addressed. Somebody needs to address, I think, you know, I know Record Store Day is waiting to hold, you know, obviously you want to put out information as you know it, and frankly, nobody knows nothing. And all I'm doing here is guessing, but I really like to think of these as educated guesses. I know what I'm doing. I run a successful record store, and, you know, I've ran successful businesses before that. This, for me, was actually a Record Store Day, excuse me, record stores, and the record store for me was a retirement thing. You know, I was in other lines of work, and I wanted something fun to do, and I chose my passion, which was records. But, you know, I've ran other successful businesses, and I can tell you there's a lot of things that need to be looked at here, and running Record Store Day in another 6 weeks, I don't see it happening. And if it does, it's going to be a disaster, and it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad publicity, because if you've got angry customers all over the world who weren't able to get stuff, that's going to piss a lot of people off. It's going to piss off a lot more people than just saying, you know what, the world's in crisis right now. We obviously can't do this for X, Y, and Z reason. We need to push it off. We'll tentatively set it for Black Friday, or we'll tentatively move it to the future, or we'll tentatively cancel it and we'll talk later on in the future. But at this point, you know, I just plan on some more kinks down the pipeline to come through. I just don't see it. I don't see it happening now. But, you know, that's where we're at in this particular moment in time. I mean, we got to look at it from, you know, that particular standpoint. So there it is. That's all kinds of bad news. And, you know, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for everybody in the world that we have to be going through this. And I know records are obviously, again, very low on the totem pole for a lot of people. But for a lot of people like myself, it's our income, it's our livelihood. Being poor isn't good for a lot of people either. So there's a lot of record stores that are being crushed, and those employees that worked at those record stores are being crushed. So I know it's only records for a lot of people, but it's also people's incomes and their livelihoods and their life savings, and it's bad for everybody. But that's enough Record Store Day 2020 doom and gloom. But subscribe to my videos. I'm going to be doing more videos on topics of the day, things like this in the future. All right, until next time.